Hey guys, Sashiri here. I know it's kind of been a while since I last posted a video, and I've had a few comments both on here and on Discord and social media asking where I've been and am I coming back? Let me explain. Okay, I'm gonna do a bit of a less scripted, more rambly video this time, probably just to get me back into it. But here's the summary of where I vanished to. 2024 was absolute doo-doo. It was quite possibly the absolute worst year of my life. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Okay, I'm not here to be complaining because we try to keep things positive here. So, the silver lining of 2024 was that I realized I needed to make some changes in my life. I've talked in my videos before about how I work in education. I don't want to dox myself here, so I'll leave it a bit vague. I don't work in a typical school. Many of my students have special needs and trauma, and they can be very volatile. So unfortunately, I've spent a lot of time at my job getting some pretty nasty injuries. At one point last year, I even got a tooth broken at work, just to give you an idea of what it's like. And I came to the decision last year that, quite simply, I need a change. I'm sure many of you, like me, grew up being told that art doesn't make money. Art isn't a real job. And I've always wanted to be a self-employed artist, but that's always just been a dream for one day in the future. And here's what I realized. One day is always going to be one day until you actually do something about it. So around the middle of last year, I decided to do something about it. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, I can't quite remember now, I took part in an art mentorship. And my goal at the time was to increase my commissions business. And I'm happy to say that worked. I was actually making more money from my commissions than my actual day job for a good while there. But there was a problem with that. I quickly realized that I hate doing commissions. Or maybe it's better to say I don't hate commissions, but I didn't really enjoy that. I never had the time to draw what I wanted to draw. I don't really enjoy the back and forth with clients. I don't enjoy having to advertise and compete with everyone for commissions. And I was pretty much always getting asked to draw things that I didn't enjoy that much. It wasn't giving me the chance to experiment or branch out. So I came to the decision that commissions just wasn't an end goal. The money was good, but it was holding me back with the time investment and just not getting to try new things. If I was devoting all of my time to just drawing what was usually Final Fantasy XIV commissions, I was never going to be able to make a living purely off my artwork. Well, I mean, I probably could if I wanted to do a specific kind of artwork, but no. So about halfway through the year, I started making a plan on what I was going to do and what I was going to prioritize. The commissions were good money, and while it hurt to lose that income in the immediate, I needed to stop doing them for a while. And so I spent the second half of the year building up my portfolio with mostly original artworks, and also a whole bunch of Sailor Moon apparently. And that brings us to YouTube. I realized that I could keep putting out these simplistic videos with minimal editing that I was already struggling to find the time to record and edit, or I could put it on hold until I had my life under control. So that's what I decided to do. Another unfortunate thing was I had a goal that I was going to have the first chapter of my original comic Dawnkeeper up by the end of the year, and that didn't end up happening. I had to put that on hold as well, but we'll get back to that one in a bit. So as someone who had made a living purely off commissions and was doing well at it, I wasn't quite sure how to transition to other forms of money making as an artist. I wanted to get into selling at conventions. The idea being I would much rather create one artwork that I could sell over and over rather than having to spend 1 to 2 weeks on a commission that I would get for a single paycheck. Unfortunately, all the original art that I had done previously had been made for digital only. It wasn't the correct dimensions or the correct resolution to be suitable for prints. So I set a goal of 10 print-ready illustrations by the end of the year. I was going to do a mix of original and fan art, as well as making merch designs like keyrings and pins. So in between health issues I was having and my job, it was pretty rough. By the end of 2024, my job was so bad I was put on stress leave for a few weeks and had to go into therapy. I eventually got invited to a Discord server for convention artists in my city, and this was the biggest source of motivation for me. I share the Art Mentors Discord server often, but being in a community that is local is completely different. They were really supportive, and I got lots of advice, and I learnt so many things that I just wouldn't have been able to figure out on my own. So in the first few days of 2025, I started looking into conventions to apply to. And I quickly realised that I'd already missed the cutoff date for a lot of them. Damn it. But I kept working, and remember I said I had to take a break from Dawnkeeper? I used that hiatus to completely overhaul the plot and redesign the characters. So even though I had to go back to square one on my storyboarding and scripting, I'm much happier with it now. Now, my first big break came at the start of March with KaiCon. I had originally applied to it, but I did not make the cut. Nor did I make the waitlist. But I somehow managed to worm my way in as a last-minute waitlist if needed, and I got in. With 2 weeks' notice. Along with only 2 weeks' notice, there was also a cyclone through my city in that week before the convention. So that was a super stressful 2 weeks, but I got there. While ordering prints of my artwork, I realised I had far surpassed my 10 illustration goal by about double, and I had to cut it down to 12 designs. With the cyclone, I was getting pretty anxious that they weren't going to arrive in time since all the mail services had cut off, but they arrived with a few days to spare. So, for my first convention, how did I do? I'm not going to share exactly how much I made, but I'll put it this way. My goal was to make the cost of the table and insurance, but I end up making nearly 4 times as much of that. That's not enough to go self-employed on, but for my first ever event, I'd say that was a success. And then 2 weeks after that, I got into another smaller event. And then the next morning after that, I woke up to an acceptance email for another convention that will be happening next month. So this year I'm only focusing on local conventions, of which it's kind of hard to find them in my city. And my plan was that if I did well this year locally, then starting next year I would start trying to get into interstate events. And so far, I am happy to say that I'm meeting my goals that I will start applying to interstate events next year. Now, unfortunately, the convention scene in Australia just isn't really big enough to be a full-time artist. So, what's my next step? Well, getting back into YouTube is one. I had actually wanted to be doing this at the start of the year, but even though my job is far more relaxed this year, there was some stuff going on for the first few months that had me doing more work than what I was expecting. So it's taken this long for me to have the time that I felt I was able to commit to this once more. After that, I'm planning to open an online shop this year. And then finally, I do want to get back into Dawnkeeper. I am working on my script for the revamped version, and I'm going through redesigning a bunch of the characters. So that is going quite well. I've also taken up some new projects. I've really gotten into resin and jewelry making lately, which I sold at my most recent art market. This does make me wonder if I need to change my name from Draw with Sajiri. Anyway, that is what the last year has been like for me and where I have been. I still have some old audios that I had recorded before my unannounced hiatus, and I've got a bunch of plans for more videos, including tutorials on how I do my line art and my colouring and some things like that, which people have expressed interest in. I'm going to be sharing more of my actual art process, and maybe I'll get around to doing some videos on the jewelry making I've gotten into. I want to say thank you to all of you beautiful people who have stuck around and who have reached out to me. If you weren't aware, you can go down to the description and you can find me on social media. I'm probably most active on Blue Sky at the moment. Anyway, I will see you lovely people again soon. Guys, I am so out of practice at this. I don't remember what I was saying. I don't remember how to use this program anymore. I do not know what any of these buttons do.